A pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome once again to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show, as always heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Coming up on today's show, the last Saturday in 2019, actually it'll be the last Saturday in the decade. Wow. But coming up on today's show, usual past the guest, Charles Edmond. He's going to be joining me via the phone lines. He's somewhere out in California. Charles is always somewhere. My goodness. He'll join me. He'll have a lot to say about what happened last week. And then we'll start transitioning into basketball. Next week, Coach Van Pettaway joins me as our SWAC basketball, or we'll just say basketball consultant on the Carlos Brown Show. Brandon B.J. Jones, he'll join me in hour number 2 as well. Topics for today. North Carolina A&T wins the 5th annual Celebration Bowl. Wow, an exciting game. Over 1,000 yards of offense. Alcorn State alum and fans are still puzzled as to what happened. Defense had a bad day. Had some players out. Secondary just had a bad day. It happens. 44 points you would think is enough to win the ball game, but not when you give up 64. We'll get everybody's opinion on the Celebration Bowl. So 64-44. North Carolina A&T just simply gets it done again. Television ratings for the Celebration Bowl down 25%. But across the board, other bowl games on the same day. And you have to deal with an NFL football game, but down 25%. Attendance over 32,000. Not bad. A couple of days before Christmas. And by the way, continued happy holidays and happy Kwanzaa to all of you. A lot of you are just disgusted about what has happened with the MEAC and the SWAC and the Celebration Bowl. And then you throw in the SWAC MEAC Challenge. The MEAC has the ups right now on the Southwestern Athletic Conference. We'll talk a little bit about that, what can be done. I'll just give you my opinion, but I want to hear from you. You have opinions and a theory of what will get the SWAC back in the swing of things in this competition between the two historically black conferences. Celebration Bowl, as we talked about, North Carolina A&T, they defeated Alcorn State 64-44. Game featured 1,034 combined yards of total offense. Alcorn finished the season 9-4, 6-1 in the conference. They pretty much were playing catch up most of the way, but showed no quit, but didn't get it done. A career day by Chris Blair, 7 passes for 150 yards and a touchdown. Boy, but Darius Anderson hauled in a game high 8 receptions for 85 yards. And let me just say this: coming into this ball game, you knew North Carolina A&T, they're going to pound it. They're going to rush. But I was just shocked. Now, that's just me. And Khalil Carter from right there in Atlanta threw for 364 yards, 6 touchdowns, no interception. He got my vote for the MVP for North Carolina A&T. Jermaine Martin rushed for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. But it was just, the first couple of series, North Carolina A&T trying to run the football, and Alcorn looked like they had 8 men on the line of scrimmage. But, boy, when they started bombing, they started throwing the football, that was shocking to me, to say the least. I had seen North Carolina A&T a couple of times throughout this 2019 football season. But the way they were able to throw the football, and see, that goes back to when you're able to throw the football and be balanced, and that's what they were to me. They were balanced. Then you put yourself in position to win the football game, and that's was North Carolina A&T. Some notes from this game: Alcorn's 44 points were the most it ever scored in a postseason bowl or playoff game. The program's previous high was 36 points in a 1968 Orange Blossom Classic. Boy, I hadn't heard those words in a long time. Coach McNair completed his fourth season at the helm and carries a 30-19 record in his career. Harper finished the year with 2,954 yards, 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. You take that every day. And 6 rushing touchdowns. He is a Black College Football Player of the Year candidate, and the winner will be announced in February 2020. Coach McNair, obviously disappointed in his opening statement. He said it was a tough battle. On offense, I thought we did some great things. Defensively, we didn't play as well as we should have, and we didn't play that perfect game that we were looking for. Too many mistakes and too many points given up. We just didn't get it done. We'll have some more quotes from Coach McNair. A particular one here is on what Coach Cedric Thornton was telling the defense on the sidelines. He kept telling everyone just to do their job. Though our defensive back had bad eyes and were trying to do things that they don't normally do, I thought we had great practices all week on the defensive side of the ball. But we didn't transition that to the field today. Let me say good morning to Dr. Michael Prince. Good morning to you, sir. Happy holidays.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy everything. How you doing, man?
Well, happy. Well, I'm doing fine. Let me say that first and foremost, almost at 100%, about 95.
Well, that's
good. I'll take that every day and twice on Sunday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 95 sure is better than 65, 35, 25.
Yeah, and eventually, hopefully, it'll be 100%. Survived the airport in Atlanta coming back last weekend. Let me tell you, you have to have patience a lot of times. And my best friend in the world, he was patient with me, and I appreciate him for that. A very busy airport, but thanking God for traveling grace. Made it back Sunday morning, and then got a chance to look at the New Orleans Saints, and lo and behold, they were down 14-0. I'm like, what the heck? But other than that, it was all good. It was a business trip. It was work, and it was some fun. Your thoughts on the football game last Saturday?
The one word I kept using was collapse. It was very, at least to me, obviously disappointing of the end results. And I would have never imagined that these two teams would have scored 108 points between the both of them, have over 1,000 yards of total offense. And in the back of my mind, to be quite honest with you, I said, if this is the best that's representing our conference, what is that speaking of us that remain behind in the work that needs to be done to try to even this playing field? That was going on in the back of my mind.
Mm. Well, I didn't give it that quite of a thought about, between the conferences, because there needs to be, I'll put it this way, I hope there's more competition between the conference and all sports, not just football. I know financially that might be a struggle for baseball or what have you. But I'm thinking, I'm sitting there just shocked at North Carolina A&T and the power that they possess in the air. That's what got to me and Michael. I'm like, wow, I just didn't think that would happen. And you would think 44 points, you win the ball game.
Well,
if you were told Alcorn would score 44 points, would they win? Yes or no?
You would obviously say yes. You would say yes, hands down. You would say yes.
It didn't happen.
No, it didn't. But see, we always talk about, and I'll give you the credit about the balance. They being Alcorn, were so focused on containing Martin that they left themselves open for wide play action plays, and they capitalized on it. And any good team is going to capitalize off those few moments that they become in games, because games are just a couple of key plays that you take advantage of that can turn the whole scenario around. And that's what A&T did.
And also, A&T they have a outstanding rush defense. But we were sitting there saying, okay, Alcorn, let's still not give up totally on running the football. At least, you have attempts and then you have yardage, of course. And they were throwing the football. Once again, they have transformed to a team that throws the football, and they do it well, looking at the numbers. But I'm thinking if it was a better performance running the football, and more attempts, they kind of A&T can just pin their ears back.
Right.
Excuse me. Now, with that being said, Alcorn was still successful and throwing it. And again, it goes back to my original point. Somebody would say, Carlos, man, 44 points. Alcorn scores 44 points. They win? Yes or no? I'm saying yes.
No doubt.
But
no doubt.
1,000 yards of total offense. Coaches, on the sideline, and North Carolina A&T just got it done again.
Well, when this game was unfolding, Carlos, you watching the first 3 series maybe of the Braves trying to execute on offense, and they were pass happy, and I kept saying, well, maybe they're trying to wear out the front four on A&T by having them think pass, then eventually going to try to slip some runs in. But I didn't think that the Braves took full advantage of Waller, who had, was coming off an injury. We understood that, but he was back home playing in front of his family, and some of his classmates would have that extra adrenaline flowing. And he did have a decent run day, but I think they didn't set the tempo early enough to control the clock and get him in a rhythm where he could have been more effectively and possibly set up even more passing big plays for the Braves to take advantage of the A&T Aggie defense.
Well, I guess some of the Alcorn State fans are still the ones that I talk to on social media and off social media. They're still a week later still trying to figure out what really happened. I mean, you can analyze it, but at the end of the day, North Carolina A&T offensively, they were able to put up some big numbers as well as Alcorn. When you look at rushing, of course, North Carolina A&T, 210 yards, net yards rushing. Alcorn State 119. Passing yards, pretty even. But that was a shocker to me. I would circle that. Alcorn, I knew that they were going to try to throw the ball, and that was their best chance of success. 341. They were 25 of 42. And North Carolina A&T 364. Threw 12 less passes, but they were big plays.
Right.
18 of 30. Average yards, completion 20.2. Wow. That's like 2 first downs. And total offense, Alcorn, 74 plays, 460 yards. North Carolina A&T ran 10 less plays and got 574 yards of total offense. Average per play, 6.2 for Alcorn, 9 for North Carolina A&T. They made more big plays.
Right. It was big plays. Because when you look at it, the time of possession was scary close. I mean, it was just almost split right down the middle when you look at the time of possession. So it all boiled down to big plays. Yeah,
29 minutes and 36 seconds for Alcorn, 30 minutes and 24 seconds. Third down conversion, 6 of 15 for Alcorn, under 50%. North Carolina A&T, 7 of 13. So that's over 50%. So the conversation during the game, after the game, of course, on social media, was simply this. Can the SWAC eventually get it done? against the MEAC in football competition. Now, and let me say this, last week I had a listener who said I didn't give Southern credit for one win. Okay, SWAC guy, and he absolutely was correct. SWAC MEAC Challenge, Southern has 3 wins. Against FAMU, South Carolina State, and Delaware State.
Okay.
So in the SWAC MEAC Challenge, Southern is undefeated.
So it's Prairie View. So it's Prairie View.
Yeah. And now who else has the win for the SWAC?
That would be negative.
In the SWAC MEAC Challenge. But to my bigger point, in the Celebration Bowl, they're 4-1. So the hot topic on social media has been, what can the Southwestern Athletic Conference do? Some people have just flat out panicked. Some had some good opinions. Some had some good facts. What I think, and I definitely want to hear from you, you can email me, the Carlos Brown Show at gmail.com. You can send me something on Twitter at franchise_show. Also, I have the Carlos Brown Show on Facebook that's open and Messenger. Non-conference scheduling. It's definitely got to get better.
Yes.
It's definitely got to get better. And I heard Brother BJ on his Facebook show basically saying that it would be some fines levied against teams that would not do this if they continue to schedule NAIA schools. Now, let's go back a little bit. Remember I had Coach Banks on maybe a month ago, 2 months ago?
Right.
And I asked him what did he think about that, and I think I brought up a fine. And he said it's not going to happen.
Yes, I recall that.
It's not going to happen. So he's speaking as the director of athletics. Boy, they're coming in now. The text messages and stuff. Okay, someone says Prairie View A&M is not undefeated in the MEAC SWAC Challenge. Prairie View is 1-1, lost to Bethune-Cookman and defeated North Carolina.
Oh, yes, I forgot. That was before they technically called it the MEAC SWAC. Okay, forgive me. Yeah. And can I say this? Let me interject this.
I know Southern's 3-0.
Let me interject this, and I thought it was in poor taste. I love my SWAC, but someone I forget who it was, but I don't really read all the threads and the boxes on social media because I really I be grinding. But I happened to come across and someone was saying, "Really, Alcorn, you give up 64 points," and it was something to the reference. That wouldn't have been the case if Southern had been there. And I'm going to have to say, hold your brakes just for a second, because you had an opportunity to get there, but you couldn't beat the team necessary to get there. So don't start dogpiling on the brother, because it was embarrassing for everybody. But to cast shade on your fellow conference brethren like that, I think that was in poor taste. I can't remember who it was that said it, but that was really, to me, a low point. Well,
I'm gonna come back and address that, because someone earlier this morning just asked me what I thought about it, and I was asked about that on press row during the game. I'm just gonna remind you: 9th in passing, 9th against in pass defense. That's Southern. But I'll come back to that. Non-conference scheduling. Now, one of the colleagues had an article about Ken Richard, about Alcorn. He was getting on Alcorn, and I read it, the article, and I didn't say too much about it because I think a lot of teams in the conference are guilty of this. I mean, Southern University played Edward Waters and Virginia Lynchburg last year. Correct?
So did Prairie View.
Correct. Yeah. So, and a lot of people on social media are saying you need to play tougher non-conference games. Meaning, don't put those teams, and no disrespect to them, but don't put them on the schedule. It can't help you.
Right.
So, with that being said, if you look at, not everybody's put out their schedule this year, but a good bit of institutions in the conference have. You don't see those type of games on there, and that's a good thing. What else did you hear? You hear style of play. The style of play is different. Is it the coaching? Is it resources? Then a lot of the conversation also went into the FCS playoffs. And most people know me. They know how I feel about that. Now, that's just my opinion on FCS playoffs, but I'm sure other colleagues may have a different opinion.
True.
On the playoffs. But competition head-to-head with the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, if you include the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC MEAC Challenge, the MEAC has the advantage.
I would agree with that.
The question is, how can the Southwestern Athletic Conference kind of change those numbers around? And I think you mentioned earlier about they were talking maybe about if this is the best that the SWAC has to offer against the MEAC, then where are we as a conference? Now, 2018, it was a closer game. 2015 was a much closer game. This one got away from Alcorn, but I'm saying let's just pump the brakes a little bit here. Let's not panic. I understand it's frustration. I wonder if those are the same people going to going to listen to say, don't be frustrated, tell me that I should be frustrated to get to the SWAC championship 2 years in a row and lose and not get there. But I think you have to analyze it, and you can look at the numbers. I don't think it's a big gap, but there is a gap.
If you allow me to say, I know people are putting a bunch of emphasis in the 64-44 loss this year, but as far as I'm concerned, a loss is a loss. It could be 1 point, 21 points. You still lose. And to continually have that challenge, you got to start doing a self-analysis. What is it that I can do to improve or increase my odds in coming up short? Personally, I would rather get beat by 20 than to lose by 1, because that to me is more agonizing, but guess what? I still lost. So when we look at it and count it up for what it's truly worth, we struggle. We're celebrating. And if you allow me to just, I'm not going to vent too long and hard. We're celebrating that we played McNeese close this year, and McNeese was middle of the pack.
Who celebrated?
Well, people say,
people in general?
Yeah, people in general. Well,
I know I was hot as hell.
And deservedly so, because here's the point that I'm making. Alcorn played Alcorn played McNeese real tough, but you lost to a team who was middle of the pack from the Southland Conference. That's nothing to be celebrating about. When you go back and look at it, that should have been a game that Alcorn won. That should have been a game that Southern won, because that team is in the middle pack to two of our upper echelon teams that represent our conference. So if we're struggling against the mid pack, and this is just Mike now, so, directed toward me, I think that the people that say that the FCS playoffs don't matter, because they know we would be embarrassed if we were put into the FCS playoffs, because we're not ready for that level of competition.
Well, right now, it would be very tough. But I say to those who feel that that's the way to go, you have an opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to start playing them in the regular season. You see some teams doing that now, but you got to start beating them. Now, as far as the financial, it's no secret. Financially, you take Southern Grambling out of it. They're not going to participate in that.
Right.
Alabama State, I guess they can speak for themselves with the Turkey Day Classic. But if you look at, say, like, for instance, James Madison, the resources that they have to have, The resources that they have, North Dakota State, you're just going to have to put more resources in that you, quite honestly, right now don't have.
I understand that, but here's the flip side of that, Carlos. If you're not going to be swayed by the FCS playoffs, then why be a part of the FCS community? Why are you paying these thousands of dollars of fees to be associated with the conference if you're not going to be willing to participate or even care about participating in the conference playoffs? And then if that be the case, why complain when one of our teams are not selected on an at-large bid, when we're not scheduling properly and we say it doesn't matter anyway? Because what you're saying, remember, is going to be put right back in your face. Well, you guys said it didn't matter anyway, so we figured why even invite you?
I think I would like to see how many who's listening right now contact and see if you care about the FCS. By the way, who's playing for the championship?
James Madison and North Dakota State. January 11th.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just look and I've had the same position for over 20 years. I've done many shows on it, and it's the way it's set up. I'm just not a fan of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm really not. Financially, it makes no sense.
Well,
to me,
you know why financially it makes no sense? Because
if I got to spend $50. I'll just use that for example. If I got to spend $100 and I can't make $200,
well, that's because of marketing, and your fan base is not what you think it is. Okay, and here,
come on, Dr.
Hey,
Prince.
no, you asking me. You're asking me, and here's my position on that. We boast about being number one in FCS attendance for 41 or 42 years. We love to showboat those numbers, but then when we get the opportunity to say, well, I don't want to spend $30,000 to host a game. If you're number one in attendance, spending $30,000 to make a potential $200,000 to $300,000, if your attendance is what you think and say it is nothing but a drop in the bucket. So don't tell me that you have to spend money. You got to spend money everywhere. You're spending $50,000 on an NAIA school to show up, and you might not even have a third of your stadium filled. You're not making money on that, but you keep scheduling these games. So don't use that as an excuse. The bottom line is we're not prepared for FCS playoffs. Our schedules are indicating that. Our lack of adjusting is indicating that. And let's just look at the man in the mirror and call it for what it is.
Well, I can look in the mirror and say, for those who don't really care about you, why does it matter what they feel?
Well, then, if that be the case, why complain?
Wait a minute. How I feel about the situation. I'm saying from a financial standpoint, if you're going to talk about moving the Bayou Classic, that's not going to happen.
I didn't say anything about that.
I can only speak for Southern and Grambling.
I never
said that. Now, the rest of the conference, if you want to participate in the playoffs, you can do that. You can do it. But
Absolutely.
You're going to, I just said earlier, you have to schedule a little bit better playing in the regular season.
Yes, and
I enjoyed Southern playing Northwestern State for 10 years.
Uh-huh.
It ended up 5-5. Now, if you're saying as a conference, that's the way they should go as a conference. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying for the conference to be considered a legit FCS conference. And let's be honest, we're not looked upon as a legit conference as a whole. And
by who?
By those you say you don't matter, they don't want you in anyway. So here's my point. Back to reference 1. If they don't matter, why are you paying to be in their group? Become independent.
Well, you could leave if you want to.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. If you want to be a part of this community, the FCS community, then you're going to have to govern yourselves where you can reap all the benefits of being in the FCS community. we talk about the Celebration Bowl and we get heads over heels. Well, we get this $1 million pot, which that's a whole nother conversation. I'm not going to open up right now, but we know that financially the Celebration Bowl is where you want to be. But for as my program, I want to be in every possible avenue that I can become a champion. And if I am, I'm going to say Prairie View. I'm going to say Prairie View. And this is Mike Prince 101. This is not representation of Prairie View A&M University. This is Mike Prince with the Open Mic Broadcast Network. If I am Prairie View athletic director, chancellor, and head football coach, realistically in the mirror, I know that I am going to be chasing Grambling and Southern when it comes to the Western Conference. And one or two of those losses, I am out of that position. So the best chance for me to continue any type of postseason play is going to be predicated on my non-conference schedule. So therefore, let me build a consistent, not a one-year wonder, but a consistent track record of being competitive in my non-conference games. In the event I do go 7-4 in a season, I still have a credible enough track record where I can receive that at-large bid and make the most of that opportunity.
Interesting. I'm getting a lot. Oh man, let me see if I can pull up some of these here. Desmond says Southern has to get it together. We're the only school to really have success against the MEAC. I don't care about the playoffs because Southern is not in it, and we won't participate in it.
That's one school. That's one school. And like I said, for the record, I don't expect, it would be foolish for Grambling and Southern to walk away from that money that's on the table that comes from the Bayou Classic. But that's not going to happen. Right. So, but that doesn't mean that the rest of those who remain, and for the record, this is Mike Prince again, so directed toward me, I think that Alabama State need to really reconsider that Turkey Bowl Classic if they want to be, true participants in the FCS playoffs, because right now the Turkey Bowl Classic is not what it used to be. Let's be honest.
I guess Alabama State people would disagree with that.
Well, they might, but when the dust settles, okay, if you're talking about extending the quote unquote brand, that's the buzzword we all like to use. And what better way to expose that brand than to get into postseason play with your athletics? Because that's going to do, you talk about spending $30,000, $40,000, $60,000. That's pennies on the dollar for the return market value that you can get for being in those playoff series. So if we're going to be players, let's be players, and let's not be part-time players.
Well, we're getting some feedback saying financially, nope, not going to do it.
Well, that's fine financially, but see, when the real rubber meets the road, if we're going to talk about finances, we got to
in the regular season. You got to make sure your house is. Well,
that's the point I was just about to lead to. Your finances is going to be predicated on your following, your home base, and I don't think it'll be going to the playoffs. Well, it won't do it. We'll have to agree to disagree on that one. Derek says don't care one iota about the FCS playoffs. Now, scheduling better and making playoffs are two different topics. You can schedule better and still not give a damn about the playoffs. And he also say that's not how it works. You would have to outbid the higher seed in order to host, and only if they did not meet that minimum bid requirement. Right. As long as higher seeds meet minimum bid, they automatically host. You can't just say, here's 30,000, we get to host as a SWAC school. No, I understand that wholeheartedly, but people use that as an excuse or a crutch for why, well, you got to pay to be in the playoffs. You got to pay to be in the conference. You got to pay to be a part of the FCS affiliation. You got to pay for everything that's involved. So don't use that as a crutch.
Anybody else have something to say about it? I've been doing it for 20 years. It's always a raw topic, and it can get raw.
It's not that raw, Brother Carlos. It's really about common sense. It's really about common sense.
I would say 80% of the callers over the years that I've done it, they're not for the playoffs. And we can just spin it back and forth.
And in all fairness, for the 20 years that you've been doing that, and the 80% of the people that have responded to that have been majority Southern Grambling fans. Of course, they don't care about the playoffs because they have the Bayou Classic, and because they are always in the front running for the championship division. It's just like people complaining, well, our SWAC champion is worn out and tired, and the MEAC champion gets to have rest. Well, you can solve that too. Get rid of the divisions and let it be all teams in one conference, just like it is in the MEAC SWAC Challenge, and then the last man standing goes to represent the conference to represent and play against the MEAC champion, and it's done and over with. But no, because we have the SWAC championship game, which is going to create finances, this, that, and the other, we opt not to do that. So you can't have your cake and eat it too. You're going to have to make a decision and stand by it.
See, I want my cake and eat it too. I've always said that. And if the playoffs is not a moneymaker for Southern, hell no, they're not going.
Okay, then, and with that being said, if any home game that we schedule during the regular season is not a moneymaker, why schedule it?
You talking about the conference?
Yeah, in the conference. In the conference. You and I have been on this bandwagon, beating this drum. It was a waste of time, waste of money to schedule a Edward Waters and a Virginia Lynchburg. We know that's not going to turn the gates like it would if Grambling was hosting Jackson State or Southern hosting Jackson State. So then why schedule those games?
I would ask Banks not to do it.
I mean,
I don't want to speak for Burton.
I understand, but I'm saying
really,
as a fan.
And really, I can't speak for him because he's going to do what he feels is necessary. He's going to do what he thinks is the best interest of Southern University. And when those two games were on the schedule, guess what? A lot of people complained about it.
Right.
Now, 2020, you don't have those type of games on there. Everybody loves the schedule.
I understand that.
Now, if you don't want to, no, technically they shouldn't play those type of games. But the same people that say that, you go play the money games, and I'm sure their fans probably feel the same way. Why would I want to see this team come on? So it's all about the money. When they say it's not about the money, nobody's going to go on the job and work for free. No, not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way this thing is going to go, you try it, in my opinion, they've got to get better. They got to get more resources. They got to have coaching that's better, and they got to try to close the gap and win some of these games. That's the way I look at it.
Well, it all works together. It really, truly all works together. Now, even though you're not saying it, but you are saying it when we say we got to get better and we got to do things that get better. And you cannot expect to get better if you're not doing better. You got to change everything, not just 1% of what needs to be. Everything, the totality needs to be readdressed and looked at, the approach of how things are getting done.
I mean, I think we're just talking most about football, but there's a whole total athletic program.
There's a total
basketball, baseball. So I think people are panicking, some, because if the SWAC were winning some games against the MEAC, of course you wouldn't hear all this. You'll still have some people that still like the playoffs. I do come across a few. But the bottom line is this. How do they start changing it a little bit to start winning against the MEAC? I mean, they may start doing it next year. Who knows?
Well, as far as the basketball, baseball reference, I've always been on record to say that we as a conference could do more damage in basketball and baseball in particular, but we don't spend nearly the resources available for those sports because we put all our eggs in the basket of football. That's what we do, because we say, why? Because football makes the most money. And that's understood. And we keep saying we need money. And I know we need money, but there are so many ways to gather money. Okay. You're looking at what the other folks are doing. And to simplify all this, and I'm going to just put it out there, we wouldn't have this conversation if we had a better TV deal. Because when you look at it across the country, not just FCS, but in FBS, attendance is down. The sales are down. Revenues are down. Okay. But what's keeping them afloat? What's keeping them going? Their TV deals. That's why they're able to keep moving full steam ahead. And I know that we get $1 million, for the Celebration Bowl and our connection with the big brothers of ESPN. But when you look and listen to the money that they're throwing out for the FCS, $350 to $400 million, that's not even a percent of what we make collectively as the MEAC and the SWAC. That's where the rubber meets the road.
Well, I'm looking at television. The record-setting Celebration Bowl down 25%, 1.8 million viewers. And then I see all the rest of the bowls on Saturday are down as well. New Orleans Bowl dropped 25%. New Mexico Bowl slid 28%. Television contract, I'll have to get Dr. McClellan on, see what he has to say about it.
Yeah, he's on my to-do list too.
And the inaugural Celebration Bowl in 2015 between Alcorn State and North Carolina A&T drew a 1.9 overnight rating. I told you, this topic always is raw. And I use the term raw. Someone says, Prairie and other members of the conference, if they want to go.
and I will echo that. Like I say, I will echo that, and to God be the glory on that statement.
We went to now, if members of the conference are unhappy with the television contract, if they're unhappy with not being successful against the MEAC, and they are not happy with the conference putting the correct me if I'm wrong, with the Celebration Bowl, then they should leave. They should consider leaving. Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that. What I'm saying, if we are not concerned or care about the FCS playoff structure as a whole, then we should leave FCS and just become independents. You'll still have the Celebration Bowl. You'll still have everything that we like to have, but you don't have to worry about paying the unnecessary not fines, but fees to be a part of FCS. You don't have to worry about their regulations, this, that, and the other. You schedule your games. You play who you want to play, how you want to play, and let the teams represent at the Celebration Bowl and be done with the whole year. And we don't even have this conversation. We mosey on down the road. We say they don't want us anyway, so let's go ahead and create our own thing and move on down the road.
That's not going to happen either.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, and that's
independent. We'll just say we'll agree to disagree on this one.
That's fine, but I'm just saying. I mean, you could hit it either way. If it does not matter, stand on your own.
I say let's not give up. Let's go out and start beating the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference and football and other sports. You want to see that happen?
That's still priority. Still priority. But what I'm saying, as a conference, we got to catch up to the MEAC. That's a given. But then as teams that are affiliated with the FCS, then we need to make a decision as a conference or as an independent institution, if I don't want to be governed and concerned about what they're doing, then why pay to be a part of them? That's bottom line. That's just like having a membership as an African American with the Ku Klux Klan Club. Why am I going to pay to be? Why am I going to pay to be a member of that?
It's called change. You can change some things,
but you don't want to change because you say the FCS playoffs don't matter.
But we have to be careful. We're speaking in general, but do we know every member of the institution feels that way?
Well, we just had somebody say, we don't care. If Prairie View want to do it, then y'all go on and do it. But all I'm saying...
No, I see why they said that. If Prairie View is unhappy with the
it's not about being
conference,
unhappy. It's not about being unhappy. It's about being realistic about what can be achieved versus what is being achieved. That's the realist. That's not about being unhappy. That's being a realist about what's laid out before us.
No, the way that sounds, it sounds like, if you're not happy, you don't like the way things going, the way the conference is ruled, or the rules that they have in that, you try to, through a process, try to change it.
Okay.
But all this started about the FCS. Like I said, I don't care about the FCS. Mm-hmm. That's just me. Now, Southern University, we talked about that, and Grambling. I think they're going to stay in the Bayou Classic. I don't think they're going to move.
And I highly recommend that they do.
Now, Alabama State. Now, Alabama A&M, how do you guys feel about it? Do you think it should be go to the FCS? And you still can go. Nobody's saying that you're not.
That has been the
whole
point.
You still have the opportunity to go.
That was the whole
point. But you got to do the certain things to get to that point to get in there.
That's the whole point, which reference right back to what I said at the beginning of this conversation. Those who remain, other than Grambling and Southern, and with the exception of Alabama State, you have to adjust accordingly if that's what you desire. And don't get in an uproar when the South Carolina States, when whomever else has had an outstanding year. I talked with Willie Simmons the other day, and he was talking about, well, that year we went 9-2. I said, yeah, brother, but University of Faith. And then what had been done consistently prior to that. You can't have 1 year and expect everybody to drop what they're doing. You have to show proven consistency with your scheduling and with your results, with your non-conference games, in order to be considered a legitimate player. That's all I said from the beginning. Nothing about being unhappy. If anything, it points back to the administration decisions of our said institutions.
Well, a listener makes a good point. It is not catching up to the MEAC. It is catching up with North Carolina A&T, because they have done an outstanding job overall, not just in football. Enrollment is up. Track and field, they've done a good job. And it's about getting better as a conference. Both conferences, all institutions in the conference. If the SWAC is winning more games, I don't even think we're having this conversation. But then I guess every so often it's going to come up, with the FCS playoffs and what have you. I understand that. My position hasn't changed in 20 years, so I guess call me stubborn, I guess.
Well, it's not calling you stubborn, but there's no need for your position to change.
But I would like to see what others think. Everyone says, what is there not to be happy about with the TV contracts?
Okay. Just look at the payouts that are received down the list. You can pick any conference, compare payouts to payouts, and you can answer your own question for that.
And what was the first round of the FCS playoffs attendance?
The attendance was
what you would say average, horrible, bad, or horrific.
Well,
which one?
I would say bad, because once again, then you got the capacity size of the said stadiums. You have to look at all that. But the average attendance was about 5,600 people.
Wow, that's bad. NCAA gonna get their money though.
Well, yeah, they're gonna get their money. But once again, let's do some quick math on that. Let's just say a ticket is $20. okay, and you got 5,000 people. Okay, how much is that, Carlo?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was it?
The ticket.
Because if it's 5,000 people in there,
and
the
tickets
ticket
are
is
$20.
Not good.
Not good. How much we talking?
You tell me.
About 100,000. Right? Huh?
And that's after expenses?
No, what I'm saying, that's just for people to get in, not counting concessions, not counting parking, and whatever else you got about it. Okay? If you compare that to hosting in Edward Waters, I guarantee you we lose money compared to what we'd have to pay in the FCS playoff game. I guarantee, I'd be willing to bet that.
Yeah, I'm glad they're not on the schedule this year.
No. I'm glad too. But what I'm saying is we look at, and like I stated back earlier, I said the reason we complain about that because our attendance is not where we're professing it to be, or it's just a struggle to get people to come. Okay. If I know every time I open my gates that I could get 15, 20,000 people in the stadium, I don't have a problem spending $30,000 to host a game. I really don't. Because I know I'm going to make that money back. I'm going to make that money back in parking. I'm going to make that money back in concessions. And I'm sure enough going to make it back in ticket sales.
We have another. All the other SWAC schools, excluding Southern Grammar, should be striving to get in the FCS playoffs, but they have to stop playing teams like Edward Waters.
I've been saying that's what I've said from the beginning of this conversation. From the beginning of this conversation.
And that'll solve all the problems.
I didn't say it's going to solve all the problems.
No, I'm asking, would it solve all the problems?
When you say all the problems, would
it solve one of the factors? Don't play them anymore.
Yes.
Those type of things.
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else would you suggest besides the playoffs?
A better TV deal.
Let's see.
A better TV deal.
What I need to do on this show is have both sides on at the same time, and let's see what's the real deal. What's the real situation about the TV contracts? You know,
the real situation is, and it's really elementary. It's really elementary. Our TV deal is not a full-fledged TV deal. Our TV deal has part to do with internet service-based viewing compared to actual television network production. And when you look at the 13 games that were scheduled this year for the Southwestern Athletic Conference alone, there were 13 games. But there were actually, I think, 4 games that were actual TV games. That was the SWAC MEAC Challenge, Jackson State versus Prairie View, the SWAC football championship game, and the Celebration Bowl. Everything else was done on an internet platform, okay, which is going to be predicated on that particular area that's trying to watch it, internet high-speed capability. That's not a true television presentation. Okay. And when you talk about TV versus TV, that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's not lambasting or casting shade. That is a fact.
The SWAC and MEAC have a better television deal than any other FCS conference.
No, now, see, once again, we can't worry about other FCS conferences. We got to worry about us, right? Ain't that what we've been saying? We don't care about the FCS. So let's get the best deal that we can get. We have a unique brand. We have a unique way of doing things. So let's focus on us. Damn the FCS. We've already said that. So don't worry about what they don't have. Let's improve what we have. If we believe in what we say about our heritage, if we believe in what we say about the productivity and the consistency of this conference, let's get a better deal.
That's kind of how I feel about the playoffs. I really do. I don't care about them. I won't even watch the championship game.
Well, I mean, to each his own on that.
Yeah, I mean, but anyway, Alcorn State loses to North Carolina A&T in the 5th annual Celebration Bowl. Television ratings for the Celebration Bowl down 25%. 1.8 million viewers, according to Nielsen's estimates from Show Buzz Daily. They've gone down. Through Monday, at this point, 7 of the 8 bowl games to start the bowl season have declined from last year, with 6, according to Sports Media Watch, reached historic lows. The New Orleans Bowl dropped 25%. New Mexico Bowl slid 28%. The Camellia Bowl fell 28%. And the Gasparilla Bowl dipped by 34%. Wow. So that's across the board. And you remember, it wasn't that many games on Saturday.
It wasn't that many games.
Season.
But you know what's
funny? And now
funny?
all of a sudden they're on there.
But you know what's funny? 5 years ago when this project started with the Celebration Bowl, it was the most rating, at 1.9? And now they're complaining about 1.8? If you weigh out the averages, that's about steady. That's about steady.
I think from the last year. I think from the last year it was 2.34.
I know, but 1.9 was the first year. But what I'm saying is the attendance has increased. The attendance was almost 33,000. But once again, I said what I need to say on 32,963.
Hey, and I think that was very good. To say it was a few days before Christmas.
Right.
Beat out other bowl games. So you just
once again,
you just try to keep improving on it. I don't. It's a good thing in my opinion.
It is a good thing, but once again, what I'm saying,
you just try to improve on it.
You try to improve on it and get a better TV deal.
Well, that's gonna be up for the commissioner and the CEOs. They run that. You know, we can have our opinions on it. Can they get a better deal? We'll see. We'll definitely see. But it ain't bad. It ain't chopped liver.
What ain't chopped liver?
Celebration Bowl right now.
No, yes, it is. If we gonna $1 million is nice, but by the time you get done chopping that thing up, that's dope fiend money.
Oh my! I'll take that over the FCS playoffs any day. I really would. Now, a guy told me, well, it's direct exposure and non-direct exposure. I'm still trying to figure out what that means.
What means about direct or non-direct exposure for what?
You think Alcorn is not happy with what they received last year and this year? 1.5 million.
Okay.
No. Do you think Alcorn's unhappy with that? I know how you feel about that.
Yes, and this is what I'm saying. And hear me loud and clear. If we're going to take that approach, and we don't want to position ourselves for FCS playoffs, then we need to start going back to the old landscape of making money and just start naming every game of the week some type of classic, have some type of theme, and hope you make your money that way. Because what it sounds like to me, we are happy being on this welfare system of what we get from this meager television deal, than going out there and challenging ourselves and pushing ourselves to bust the seams.
Wow. Well, welfare, huh? Okay.
Well, it's welfare compared to what other TV deals are. Yes, it is welfare.
$10.59. That'll do it for our number one. Coming up in hour number 2, we're going to have Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network and Brandon B.J. Jones. He will join me in hour number 2. Topic so far today: North Carolina A&T wins the 5th annual Celebration Bowl. Television ratings for the Celebration Bowl down 25%. Attendance at 32,968. Can the SWAC improve on their performances in the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC MEAC Challenge? That's kind of what we've been talking about today. Next week, we'll start with SWAC hoops and basketball. Coach Van Pettaway, he'll join me next week. Had a good conversation with him today. Couldn't make it today, but he'll be ready. He'll be ready to go. If you want to join in on the conversation, if you got a comment, question, the Carlos Brown Show at gmail.com. Also, you can go on Facebook, the Carlos Brown Show, Facebook Messenger. We have some questions or comments, basically, coming in as we speak. I'll get a chance, hopefully, to read them all, and we'll take it from there. But that's it for hour number 1. Coming up next, Charles Edmond. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
I present to you 3 of the fiercest subjects ever assembled in the cage of doom. First, the brain-wrenching behemoth, Algebra 2, weighing in at a mind-boggling 800 pounds. Foreign languages! The multilingual international sensation capable of tossing you clear across the Atlantic. And finally, biology. More ferocious than formaldehyde, she'll dissect you 1 chromosome at a time. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. I'm in. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college. Find out which classes you need at knowhowtogo.org.
Brought to you by the American Council on Education, Lumina Foundation for Education, and the Ad Council.
Reach more potential customers through our sports radio package by dialing 832-213-8824.
One voice. It can get the point across, but it only carries so far. Add a voice. It's richer, louder, but that has limits too. Add a third voice. It's even more powerful. Add another, and another, and many, many more. And we are stronger than ever. That's the power of a community coalition. They help community groups, faith groups, civic organizations, PTAs, employers, and many others in your community organize their resources and focus them where they're needed most, like fighting to keep kids away from drugs. Ask a group that you belong to if they should belong to a community coalition. It's easy to get involved. Visit helpyourcommunity.org and they'll tell you exactly how your group can help. That's helpyourcommunity.org, because you get more when we get together. Brought to you by the Office of National Drug Control Policy and the Ad Council.
Serving the community through faith and athletics. The Open Mic Broadcast Network.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of this week's episode of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Going to visit now with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network. Charles, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, I'm doing fine. It has been just a hot show in hour number 1, and we talked after the game a little bit last week, and you did express your what's a good word to use? about the game, and you point blank said the defense did not play well. But 44 points, Charles, you would think that's enough to win a ball game, correct?
Yeah, it was an insane ball game in every aspect. If you had told me that Alcorn would score over 40 points, then I would feel very confident about coming out of there with a win and getting a win after our third try.
That's what I said. Now we're number one. Same here.
But if you had told me that A&T was going to score over 60, I never would have believed that. Because, I mean, you just break down, A&T's not an offensive juggernaut. I mean, they want to keep the game in the 20s and let their defense take over. But, you know, look, that third quarter is when the game got away from the Braves, especially, I'll go back, late second quarter. They had
24 points.
Yeah, second quarter, and then the 2-for-1, what I call. You know, you score late in the first half, you get the ball to begin the second half, and you score. What's being referred to now, like in basketball phrase, a 2-for-1 against the shot clock, and you get two possessions. And I think that kind of set us back. And then we could just never get off the field. We got to within 2 scores 4 different times, and each time A&T would answer. And that was so surprising. And just not only that, in the way that it happened, big play after big play after big play after big play. That was probably more surprising when you look at this Braves defense. They hadn't given up those type of plays all year long. So, you know, that's what it was, basically the same play, the post, the skinny post, the deep route. And, you know, we never could get pressure, number one. And then when you have a quarterback like that, a fifth-year senior, you standing like Tom Brady in the pocket can just pick you apart, and he made some nice throws too. I thought it was some decent coverage, but, you know, balls were thrown out for the receivers to go under and get it, and they did. So, I mean, you know, give Felix Harper credit. He did what he needed to do, threw for over almost 400 yards. And I think clearly, and I saw Coach Washington after the game, and he said that Felix Harper's the truth. You know, just giving him his praises and credit. But, you know, it was just, if you're a Braves fan, obviously it's disappointing in the loss, but just how it happened and just the fact that you just didn't see this defense getting up the big plays that they did. And it hurts. I mean, it's still painful a week later. It's a lot of talk on social media. I think it's, in my opinion, it's kind of getting a little bit out of hand, you know, 7 days later. And I get it. I mean, look, this was a good Braves team with 26 seniors. So I think a lot of people going in, including myself, felt like this was the year we would get one. Talking about not only Alcorn in the Celebration Bowl, but the SWAC versus the MEAC. Because it's kind of a bigger conversation. You talk about SWAC versus MEAC. And again, the MEAC comes out on top. So, I mean, I just think it's just, you know, a combination of losing the game, how we lost it, the way we lost it. And it still stings, you know, 7 days later to a lot of people, and I'm still kind of shocked too. 7 days later, I'm not gonna lie to you on that. Kind of like Southern and Alcorn. I mean, it's not the same. 10 out of 11.
That's what I was about to say. Now people will see how it feels, and it takes you a while. But let's just do this while we're at it now. Let's give credit to Mr. Carter for North Carolina A&T. 364 yards. Charles, I did not see that coming. And what I like about what he did, when the pressure got to him, he's scrambling, but his eyes are still fixed on downfield. And, you know, it wasn't just, okay, let me take off and run. He still was looking downfield, and he was able to hit some receivers. That was the biggest shocker to me in the ball game. How well he played, and I guess because I'm from the outside looking in and hadn't seen him for the whole season, I give plenty of kudos and props to Mr. Carter for North Carolina A&T.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he looked very poised in the pockets, and I think a lot of that is if you don't get, and this is any quarterback, but you know, when you're talking about a veteran guy like Carter who was waiting for the opportunity, fifth-year senior. You know, any quarterback, if you give him time, and, you know, normally we would get pressure, but we just could not get home. And And I was told after the game that we were really thin up front, D-line. We only used 4 defensive linemen throughout the game, what I was told. So we were really thin up front. We had some guys that did not play up front that were expected to play. So, I mean, not saying that's an excuse, but, you know, you got to have a little depth up there to rotate guys in and out. We didn't have that. But, you know, you got to give Carter credit. You know, he stepped up and made the throws. You know, we had him on a 3rd and 16. I mean, that clearly favors Alcorn defensively. Just couldn't get off the field. I mean, time after time after time in that third quarter, especially late second quarter, third quarter, we just couldn't get them off the field. And I felt like if we did, we're going to come right back and score. I mean, that's just kind of how I felt the way it was going to go. But, you know, it's tough. It's a tough pill to swallow, even 7 days after the fact. And, you know, for this Braves team, a lot of work to do. 26 seniors that we're losing. And, you know, we, especially guys up front, offensive line, defensive line, we're losing some guys. We're losing Waller. So, you know, some work to do. But, you know, it was a great game. It was very entertaining. You know, record set, but disappointing nonetheless, because you just didn't expect that type of game, that type of score, and for it to happen in that type of fashion. I don't think anyone expected that.
Yeah, visiting with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, discussing the aftermath of North Carolina A&T and Alcorn State. North Carolina A&T defeats Alcorn 64-44. Listening to Coach McNair's show, I know he talked about going in the JUCO route to address the O-line and, you know, in the line play. And as we talked after the game, tomorrow's not promised to you. You know, Alcorn's been very successful, of course, in the SWAC, Eastern Division champ, but 2020 is a different year. It's going to be here very shortly. You can't rest on your laurels. You still have to get out and work. So this upcoming new year, it could be maybe a changing of the guard. I hear a lot of conversation about Alabama A&M, but going forward for Alcorn State, to me, it just seems like next man up. They got to rebuild. You got to feel comfortable that they feel like they can get the job done, Charles.
Yeah, I mean, look, we got a quarterback. We got Felix Harper, got Nico Duffy in the backfield. You got some young receivers, Akeem and Tim McNair. That back end, even though we struggled, is fairly young. Most of those guys on the back line will be back. But that was kind of the positive going into 2020. The fact that our secondary had been so solid and so young. You know, we're losing Javen Morrison. He wears 45. He had kind of an impact on the game. That was his last game. But the back line, most of those guys will be back. And look, for me personally, you know, I would love for the Purple and Gold to be there every year. But the reality is that at some point it will come to an end. And I'm enjoying the ride while we have it. And I think that's kind of the way that, you know, I know fans don't necessarily look at it that way. I mean, fans of whatever team you follow, whether it's the Patriots or LSU or Alcorn, it doesn't matter. I mean, at some point the run comes to an end. And at some point you enjoy the ride while you have it. You know, we talked about it last week, you know, on Media Day. You know, if you look at 2020, you know, who will be the favorites? I think Alcorn will probably, once Media Day rolls around, they come out with who's going to be expected to finish where. I think it's going to be Alcorn 1, A&M 2. Probably it's a toss-up between Jackson State, Bama State. I'm probably going to say Bama State 3 because they beat Jackson this past season. JSU 4, they got a lot of work to do on the defense, and Valley bringing up the rear. And, of course, I think Southern will be picked 1, Grambling 2. Who's 3, though? You know, Prairie lost a lot. Is it UAPB? I'm going to say UAPB 3, Prairie 4, and TSU 5. And, you know, every year it's different. You know, every year, you know, teams are coming after you. I still think the Braves are the best team in the East. But I do think if A&M finds a running game with Jordan Bentley gone, Akil Glass, You got a freshman all-conference receiver in Ibrahim. If they get a running game and we got to go to Huntsville next year, we got to go to Prairie View, we got to go to Southern next year, it's going to be tough next year with what we lost. And I'm just saying this from a realistic standpoint. Would I love to see the Braves win their 7th straight Eastern Division title? Absolutely. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. It's not going to be easy because Southern's still chomping at the bit. And I know Jaguar fans are still angry 3 weeks later. I get that. And I know our fans are still going to be angry 3 weeks after this game. I get that. But, this is once the calendar turns, Carlos, and you're exactly right. The cycle starts all over again. That climb up the hill starts all over again, and you got to rebuild it again. And that's the beauty of it. That's the challenge of it. That's the frustrating part of it, but that's what makes sports exciting. So I'm kind of looking forward to the challenge and seeing how Fred McNair will be able to rebuild this team after losing so many seniors.
Visiting with Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network, discussing the aftermath of the Celebration Bowl, the 5th annual. Charles, television ratings, we've discussed it, I guess, at a great length in hour number 1. But you sent me a text message with the early returns. Donna Ware sent me something. Television ratings were down 25%. Attendance still right at 32,000. Not bad for 4 days before Christmas. An NFL game on at basically the same time, but the bowl games that were played that day all saw right around the 25%, viewership drop. Any concerns with that as far as you're concerned?
I'm not. I was waiting for I actually talked to John Grant Sunday, coming back from Atlanta, just to get his thoughts. My biggest concern was the title sponsor, and it just shows you what you know and what you don't know. I didn't realize that one time before we didn't have a title sponsor. Mm-hmm. Is that the most important aspect? Sponsorship, viewership, which one carries more weight? And I don't know that. Personally, I probably would think viewership because ESPN is sponsoring a lot of this stuff. You want to keep those folks happy, to keep them putting the game on. But John Grant didn't seem to be concerned the time that we talked last Sunday about it. I do think, though, what probably will save the day as far as the ratings is ratings throughout the whole bowl cycle is down. Mm-hmm. So I think, and, that's another question for another day, I guess, as to why ratings are down across the board. Ratings in college football, ratings in the NFL, ratings, period, are down. If you just look at the NBA, even ratings there are down. So ratings across the board in every sport are down. And I don't think it's a problem. I don't think. Now, that's just my opinion. I hope that things can change a little bit. I think a 1.8 to me is, in my opinion, is kind of a baseline number for me. If it's anything less than 1.8 over a consistent period of years, I think there's an area of concern. But I do think 1.8 is kind of the Mendoza line. Anything over that is great. Anything less than that, you got to be a little bit concerned. But if you hit that target, I think you're okay. We were up against NFL games. I think you can't dismiss that. The NFL is going to win out every time when it comes to going up against that programming. You had 3 NFL games on, all of them with playoff implications. So, I think that was tough. That's tough to work around. But again, all the bowl games have had decreased viewership, and that's a concern for college football, not only for us viewing the Celebration Bowl, but across the board. What can be done to improve that? I don't think anything, because with the advent of HDTV and people just don't want to deal with the traffic and all of that, people want to sit on their couch and look at the game and not have to deal with all that stuff. I'm anxious to see what the playoffs today, what those ratings are going to look like. If those are down, then you really have something to talk about. But 1.8, it was down from a 2.3, down 25%, which is roughly 400,000 viewers. So I am, it is something to talk about. Am I worried about it a little bit? Yeah. Am I deeply concerned about it? No. Let's let a couple more years pass And look, let's put this out there. I mean, I think for Braves fans, we love to be in it every year, but I think two words, and just from a business perspective, and John Grant is a businessman. Let's face that. The two words that I think that you got to throw out there: bowl fatigue. I mean, how many years has Alcorn and A&T been in this thing? You got the same two teams, and roughly you've had, 4 teams be in this Celebration Bowl since its inception. You've had Alcorn and Grambling, and you've had A&T and Central. Does that play a part in it? Just like, the Cavaliers and Golden State in their prime, the Patriots in their prime. I mean, and all this stuff you throw in there, you got to throw in the pot as well. Does it make that big of a dent? Maybe not that big of a dent, but you got to talk about it, because we've been in this thing 3 times. A&T's been in this thing a bunch. So all that. You have to throw all that in the soup as well and try to decipher all that. So there are a lot of factors. My personal opinion, and just talking with John Grant a little bit, just getting his feel on it. You and I have talked to him a bunch of times. I think it's something to have a conversation about, but I don't think, to me, he just didn't seem overly worried about it. I would like to see a title sponsor, though. I think if we get that, then I think that will start, the positive, the trend going in the positive direction. We had a lot of small sponsors this year. We didn't have the big Air Force Reserve sponsor, or the big sponsor that you're normally accustomed to seeing. You had a lot of little sponsors to kind of pick up the slack, and you hope you can hit a home run. From what I've been told, that we will have a major sponsor next year. And if you get that plus the smaller sponsor that you had this season, then I think from the corporate perspective, I think you would have accomplished your goal.
A listener says, be careful. Remember to factor in streaming viewership as the viewership shifts from television to streaming platforms. And I was just reading about streaming, and I've had neighbors to talk about, and just in general about cord cutting, cutting away from cable.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's going on as well. Things are always shifting, the dynamics, and you got to, I guess you got to keep up with it. And I agree with you. 1.8 is a baseline. Television ratings dropping. That seems to be the norm compared to other bowl games. Attendance still pretty good. I would say.
Yeah.
There was a question of fatigue with the two teams. Look, I heard it so much in Atlanta till I almost threw up. Bottom line is, Southern wasn't there. They had 2 years to try to get there. They didn't. Alcorn won twice. They're there. A&T got there. FAMU had an opportunity. They didn't take advantage of it. Last year, this year, they can't go. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit up here and say, feel good about that. Oh, everybody wants Southern there. But the bottom line is they're not. They didn't get there.
Yeah.
And that's another story in itself.
Well, I think, yeah, and this argument, well, it is an argument now, I think. Like I said, it's been pretty bad on social media, just all the posts. It's gotten pretty nasty in terms of SWAC versus MEAC. People are panicking, and they're going way overboard, some. Right, I agree with that. And this whole conversation of which conference is better, SWAC versus MEAC. I mean, if you just put it out there, the SWAC. There are two chances for us. When I say us, SWAC folks, because we cover the SWAC, we follow the SWAC. We have two chances a year to show that we're the better conference: the SWAC MEAC Challenge and the Celebration Bowl. Now, I was thinking about this the other day. Now, the SWAC MEAC Challenge, if you want to decipher which one kind of gives you the better sample size of which one is the better conference, the SWAC MEAC Challenge, they're different teams every year. It's not, they're gonna make sure every team in the SWAC MEAC is represented in that game. So if you want to use that as the criteria, okay, you can. And obviously the MEAC has that advantage. Jackson State, obviously lost Bethune-Cookman. Gramblin's going to be in it next year. We're going to be in it in 21. So you could use that. But then if you look at the Celebration Bowl, there's only been 4 teams in it. And as you said, and I agree, you got to get here. You got to do what you need. In the Celebration Bowl, they don't pick teams. You got to qualify to get here. You got to win your division. You got to win, in the SWAC, you got to win your division. You got to win your conference. The MEAC doesn't have a championship game, and I personally don't think they're going to have one, to be honest with you. I think Sam Washington talked about the 5 weeks off that his team had, or the 4 weeks off.
Yeah, I think like having another spring.
Absolutely. I interviewed Dr. Dennis Thomas, the commissioner of the MEAC, and he said as of right now there's no energy to have one, and I think, it's just my opinion, I don't know this, I have talked to no one about it, but just my own take on it because of the MEAC success in the Celebration Bowl. I think any energy for having a MEAC championship game probably is going to dissipate with every year that a MEAC team wins it, because they feel like that time off will help them as compared to us grinding each other away in the SWAC championship game, which is great financially for us. And I think our fans love it. Even though it's just been Alcorn and Southern the first 2 years, I think clearly on this side of the track, I think there's a lot of energy for having a SWAC championship game, whether it's on campus or at a location. But I'm kind of getting the sense that the MEAC folks are not going to have a lot of energy to have a MEAC championship game. I think they're happy with just ending the regular season. Whoever wins that thing will have a month to get ready for the Celebration Bowl. I think they're happy with that because of their success, even though they won't make the money that they would if they were having it on campus or if they had a MEAC game in terms of ratings and all of that. I think they're fine with just having a month to get ready and play that one game in Atlanta and get that pay date and be done with it. I think that's just my opinion. I might be wrong about it, but I just kind of got the sense coming out of this year's Celebration Bowl that any talk of a MEAC championship game probably will go away here in a short period of time. I might be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I understand. And you think about it, the competition between the two leagues, North Carolina A&T, and you know how sometimes we talk about matchups? Morgan State, and I know sometimes you'll play down to the competition. They lose twice to Morgan State. North Carolina A&T, you wouldn't have thought that would happen 2 years in a row. A rivalry, sometimes it goes back and forth. You win some, you lose some. You don't want to see the competition be one-sided. And then if you take into account the SWAC MEAC challenge, you're right, Grambling and South Carolina State, next year, 2021, what is it, Alcorn State and North Carolina Central?
Yeah.
And from what I heard, 2022 is Southern and North Carolina A&T.
Oh, man, that'll be.
Now, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Nothing official yet. Because, when you're at the Celebration Bowl, you know they're going to flash up next year's game. So there's some opportunities to kind of get back in the winning ways. But as one listener said, basically, and then another one just said the same thing. It's not a big gap. It's just that A&T is just that much better than everybody else. But then you wonder about FAMU. You throw them in there. And I don't want to start that situation about them being HBCU champions. But we'll see what happens going forward. I just think a lot of people are, and they're entitled to their opinions. I understand it. But it's a lot of it's going overboard. Wow. They're going from one extreme to another. And I think there's some common ground in the middle.
Yeah, I get it. Look, we've been very successful in our league. And I get the whole, all the mantras and all the sayings, who wants to smoke and all. I get all of that. Every fan base has that. Every school has that. And when you've had the level of success that all Corner schools had, of course you're going to throw that out there. But I also think, too, from the MEAC side, that if you look at coverage of HBCU football, SWAC versus MEAC, in my opinion, I think that the SWAC gets a lot more of the love. You look at these games, the Magic City, the Bayou Classic, the SWAC Championship game that are on national platforms. Of course, MEAC doesn't have their championship game, but to me, I think there's a little bit of, and again, this is my opinion, I think that there may be a little bit of jealousy from the MEAC folks about the level of coverage, and all you hear about is SWAC, SWAC, SWAC. But yet in the MEAC, on that side of the track, they're doing a lot of good stuff over there too. Florida A&M obviously is, they're ineligible. They couldn't go. I mean, that's unfortunate. Willie Simmons has stood tall and made that program into something special despite those obstacles. And then you go up and down the line up the East Coast where the MEAC is located, from Florida to D.C. I mean, you hear a lot about the SWAC, but there's not a lot of talk about the MEAC. And I think to some MEAC fans, whatever school that you follow, you don't get those storylines. I mean, we're on social media. We see a guy like Mark Gray that I know well, and I think you know him too, Carlos, who try to promote the MEAC. But there aren't as many, to me, as many MEAC platforms that promote the MEAC as there are SWAC. You got your show, and you got the Cavill show, and Donald Ware does a good job in balancing both. I think he does a terrific job with that. But I think there's just a little bit more synergy and energy in SWAC football and a lot of the love. And I think the MEAC is saying, you know what, we don't get a lot of the love that y'all get. And I think there's a little bit of jealousy there. So the times that we can flex our muscles, we get it done. And I think that's what they tout and that's what they boast. And so far, if you look at the records, they've had the upper hand.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. A listener says, every year we are near the top in attendance and ratings for opening bowls. Why can't we secure a sponsor? Excuse me, I had to choke on that one.
Yeah, that causes you to pause. That's a good question, and it's one obviously finances and exposure. Sponsors are looking for a return on their investment as well, just like everybody in the business venture. You would think the Air Force Reserve the Air Force would stick and stay, because I think it sounds good, the Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl, but budget cuts, and you've heard the rumors as to why they pulled out. I think that it's a continued work in progress on that. And I think the bowl games, if you look at some of the other bowl games, Carlos, they've had different sponsors. The New Orleans Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, I mean, they've had different sponsors. So I don't think it's just exclusive to the Celebration Bowl. I think sponsorship overall is a moving target. With the economy being what it is, businesses are looking for opportunities to stick and stay. And when it doesn't stick and stay, they pull out. And whether it's budget cuts or whether they're not getting a return on the investment. So I think for the Celebration Bowl, that's what we focus on. But just look at some of the other bowl games. They have different sponsors as well. And I think it's just not unique to our situation. I think in business in general, I think it's kind of a moving target with the economy being what it is right now. Just my opinion. I don't know the exact answer, but I'm just looking at other bowl games and who's sponsoring them. It's different, in some of these bowl games, especially those first day games that we saw last week, the New Orleans Bowl and some of the other ones. They've got different sponsors. So I think it's kind of the unfortunate trend right now, especially on that side of the bowl spectrum.
Well, some would say there are too many bowls, but that's another topic for another day. But Quick Lane Bowl, 34,765 between Pittsburgh and Eastern Michigan. Las Vegas Bowl, 34,197. That was played between Boise State and Washington. Independence, 33,129. Louisiana Tech, of course, in Miami Celebration Bowl, 32,968. So attendance, viewership, that would be a good question to ask to the higher-ups to specifically answer that question.
Yeah, I think John Grant, he's very open to talking about it. I know the 1.8, ratings that report's out there. I did text John Grant the other day about it, and he said he had to, even though it's out there, he said he had to kind of confirm that before he could really comment. I wanted to get his comment on it and kind of put that out there to let people just get an idea of what his thoughts are, because, you know, he's the pulse. You know, it kind of starts and stops with him in terms of, you know, his relationship with fans and teams, and then his relationship with the suits at ESPN and Disney. So he's the one that can really give us the pulse of what's going on with that game, good, bad, or others. And you know, he had to kind of confirm the 1.8. I'm sure that's probably right, but he just wanted to get his data and make sure that's right before he could comment on it. And once he does, I'll definitely put it out there. I'm sure you can probably get him on your show too, Carlos, just to kind of, because you know, you kind of actually, you know, I've interviewed him, but you actually helped me with our relationship with him. So I'm sure you could, you know, if it wasn't for you, you know, you really helped me with that. So I think, you know, it's a good conversation to have, just to see the future of the Celebration Bowl, where we are in attendance, viewership, sponsorship, the future of it. Because it's clearly, you know, I think it's in a good place and a good space, but you always want to see a business product improve. You know, you want to have more sororities, fraternities there, and just other stuff to make it even better than what it is, to kind of solidify its place. So I think it's a good conversation to have.
Well, I would actually about the playoffs, because when I first met you, remember the the back and forth we would go we'd go against each other about the playoffs and the Value Classic, and it's ironic that the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, remember when the Celebration Bowl was announced that they were going to do it, you had a lot of the MEAC fans, they were like, no, I'm not going to participate in that. Seems like now they kind of changed a little bit. I'm sure they got some that still, you know, would like to send the number one team there. But, boy, 20 years later, it's still a conversation piece. It really is. We'll have to see. Hopefully, the bowl game will be around for a little while, a good while, and hopefully it's doing better, can get better, and hopefully, I can say this, somebody can knock off A&T and somebody can knock off Alcorn and get some fresh blood in there.
Well, I say this every year, Carlos, about the SWAC. I don't know about the MEAC. I think A&T, they got a lot. You know, their quarterback was a senior, Jermaine Martin, veteran guy, so they're going to lose some pieces. You know, and I tell people this all the time, I mean, about this run that we're on. People might not see it, but it may be at a trickles pace, but teams are getting better. I mean, I think that we have to continue to do, and I think that's what makes this offseason so important. When you lose 26 seniors who won championships, who won division titles, that's a lot to lose. And I think that if you want to rank the SWAC teams right now 1 to 10, you know, clearly I think there's going to be some competition. I mean, UAPB, we don't know if that's going to be the one. I mean, I love Cedric Thomas, but his team won more games this year than they've had since 2013. Is his team on the upward trend? You know, Prairie View, they're going to take a step back after losing Morton, after losing Tucker. And, you know, they're going to take a step back. Southern still has Skelton, and I read all the stuff about Skelton, and just, you know, I still think he's the quarterback to give that team the best chance of winning. Ben Grambling with kickball.
Open competition, Charles.
Yeah, okay. Well, I get that. I get that. I think Skelton will win that competition. That's just me. I'm just saying, I just think you've invested a lot of resources in that kid. And if you want to make a transition, you have every right to do that. There's a risk and reward for it all, I guess is what I'm saying. But you look at Grambling, you know, it's Hickbottom, the guy. I mean, you're hearing about, will Orlando still be the OC there? And, you know, their defense was really good, and their defense let them down. So will Grambling's D get better? Will they get better on offense? You know, will Jackson State get better with T.C. Taylor, the offensive coordinator? That's getting some conversation. You know, while their quarterback's transferred out. So it's it's early. I guess it's never too early to talk about 2020, but, in this conference, teams are slowly getting better, and the Braves have to continue to play at that high level, recruiting and otherwise, or else some teams will be nipping at their heels, and Southern and Grambling, some teams will be nipping at their heels, and that's what makes this thing fun. So that's why I never take it for granted. I always take 1 year as a different year than last year, and because you got to prove yourself all over again, as you said earlier. The cycle starts all over again, and you got to do it all over again. You got to prove it all over again, and sometimes that's not easy to do. Just depends on a lot of different circumstances.
It actually starts now.
It does.
Conditioning, spring, conditioning, fall camp season, and then you have it back to opening week. So, Flag Football Media Day will be here before you know it. That's the end of the year, but hey, 2020, there's going to be some warm buns, I think, in the conference. There's going to be some hot seats, some warm seats. You've got some fan bases that are just tired, they're pissed off, they're angry, they're frustrated. Oh, you have a recipe for a big one. A big one's like the Gulf waters. If it's 85 degrees, watch out.
Well, I tell you what, one thing that we haven't talked about, though, Dr. Ely, the coach at Alabama State, has got a new contract. That's something that we haven't talked about. So obviously he proved his worth down. I think he did it, beating Jackson, beating Grambling, winning some games down the stretch. I think the fan base and administration feels comfortable with him at the helm. Some people thought his seat would be warm, but he just got a new contract in the last week or two. So that's an interesting development.
I wonder if it's a long one.
Yeah, that is short. Yeah.
Well, we shall see. A lot to talk about. Basketball next week. Typical. You got some close losses. You got some blowouts. You got money games. Coach Pettaway is ready for next week. It's conference time. And for Southern University, quite simply, on the men's side, can they get in the top four? For the women, just maintain. It's going to be tough, but I expect the women to be a little bit better in that top 2 or 3. Well, let's say top 2. But we shall see. It's going to be a long conference season. Actually, it's going to be a short one, actually. It's been a long season already with the non-conference. But rest up, Charles, and have a great broadcast today.
Oh, I appreciate it.
All righty. Talk to you soon. That was Charles Edmond of the Alcorn State Radio Network joining us. Going to take a quick time out. When I come back, Brandon B.J. Jones will get his thoughts on all of the above. A&T, Alcorn, Celebration Bowl. Is there a big gap between the conferences as far as competitiveness in football? We'll ask him about that. You're listening to the Carlos Brown Show on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com.
Be the one with courage to fight child abuse.
All Texans must find the courage to fight child abuse.
Learn the signs and symptoms and report suspected abuse to appropriate authorities.
Learn and know these warning signs.
A child who undergoes changes in behavior, appetite, or routine. Watch for unexplained injuries, a change in academic performance, or loss of interest by a child in regular activities.
Trust your instincts. If you suspect something, do something.
If you believe a child is in an abusive situation, please call the Texas Abuse Hotline at 1-800-252-5400.
Be the one with courage. To find your local Children's Advocacy Center, visit onewithcourage.org.
On behalf of children, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know that as parents, we work hard to do everything right. We baby-proof our homes, put our kids in car seats, and learn what to do in an emergency. Yet most parents don't know that children could be poisoned by lead paint in their own homes. Lead poisoning causes permanent learning and behavior disorders, and the culprit is usually dust from peeling or chipping lead paint, which goes from the children's hands right into their mouths. Keep paint in good condition in your home, daycare, and other places where your children live and play. Ask your doctor to test your child for lead poisoning and get your home tested too. For more information on how to address lead paint problems safely, call 1-800-424-LEAD. This has been a public service announcement from the Open Mic Broadcast Network.
Welcome back to this final segment of the Carlos Brown Show, heard exclusively right here on the Open Mic Broadcast Network and Spreaker.com. Brandon, B.J. Jones joins me. B.J., good morning here, good afternoon there.
Yeah, man, how's it going, Carlos, man? Good morning. How are you?
Man, I'm doing all right. I'm just kind of blown away on social media, the energy. The SWAC may not win another game against the MEAC, and still the aftermath of the Alcorn State and North Carolina A&T, you can probably bring some calmness to the situation. Get your thoughts on what I just mentioned.
Oh man, the first thing everybody needs to do is relax. Just relax. Hey, the gap between the SWAC and the MEAC is not as large as people like to make it out to be. A lot of people will look at Saturday and say, "Wow," but Southern University, who finished second in the SWAC, was a 97-yard drive away from beating FAMU in Tallahassee. That wasn't a neutral site game. That was a game in a hostile environment, and Southern University at that point was not the Southern University that they were towards the end of the season. Bethune-Cookman struggled to beat Mississippi Valley. It's the MEAC. I would be lying if I tell you that the MEAC is not the better conference and has not been the better conference for some time. But the gap is not wide as people have made it out to be this week.
Mm-hmm. And people are emotional after a game as such as North Carolina A&T and Alcorn State. I had just jotted down some notes. Style of play, you heard that. Coaching, it's coaching. You heard that on social media. I even heard the resources. More so when I was kind of looking at the conversation about the FCS playoffs and should that be the way the conference should go. And then I put scheduling, non-conference. Now, I did hear your remarks about playing the likes of Edward Waters and Virginia Lynchburg, which I think everybody, I would say, was in total agreement. You don't want to see, that competition on the schedule. So I think you can schedule smart. I think the word was used, we got to schedule better teams. The Southland, the OVC, So you got different dynamics in the discussion that was going on after the Celebration Bowl on social media last week.
Oh yeah, man, absolutely. I mean, anytime you have something like that happens, people will scramble looking for answers. And if you look at the MEAC, I mean, they do schedule better. They still will slip an Edward Waters in there, but as a whole, they schedule better. I will always remember this. There was a head coach in the SWAC who told me that the SWAC suffered from the SWAC championship game. And he all honestly believed that. He said, because at that point, the idea of building the best program to go out and compete nationally, that went away. And at that point, you were only competing against the 9 other institutions in your league. Fans stopped caring. Athletic directors stopped caring. the main goal was just to win the league. And when that happened and the MEAC continued to shoot for the playoffs, the gap continued to widen and widen.
So does he feel, and this was a conversation that was had a while back, or it was recently?
This was maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, okay. Because I would wonder what he would say now that the conference has, fall into the celebration, although there are opportunities for at-large bids, and we know what happened with South Carolina State. A lot of colleagues thought that they missed an opportunity that should have been theirs.
Yeah.
South Carolina State. I don't know. BJ, I've just been consistent over 20 years. I mean, have I thought about maybe a Southern playing in the playoffs? Yeah, I have. But I guess I've been selfish. I would want my cake and eat it too, and I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I just often thought about playing those type of things. And then resources. I would like to get your thoughts on that. I mean, James Madison, North Dakota State, they have tremendous resources available to them.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at, James Madison, or when you really start talking about the schools that are in the heartland, the Northern Iowas, the North Dakota States, North Dakota State, Montana, those schools are the flagship of their state, and states that don't have FBS football. So those schools are the biggest thing in town. They are the biggest thing in the state. They are the it. That is the thing. We're disadvantaged, and a lot of FCS schools in the South that are not non-HBCU say we're disadvantaged from the standpoint of being in the South, in SEC, ACC, country. But I will say this, from a resources standpoint, there ain't a big difference, if there's a difference at all, between SWAC facilities and MEAC facilities. They're neck and neck. Matter of fact, I would give the SWAC the edge with the facilities that you have at Alabama State and Prairie View. You don't have anything like that over in the MEAC. I do believe that you can be competitive, schedule better, and still have the Celebration Bowl. It doesn't have to be an either or. You can do both.
Wait a minute, you want your cake and eat it too as well?
Yeah, you can do both. There's nothing stopping you from scheduling a Southland or an OVC team in the regular season, and getting wins over those teams, and still playing the rest of your schedule as is. Because when we bring up schedules, a lot of people automatically think, oh, we just end the Celebration Bowl, we just go back to the playoffs. And that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is you have the ability to schedule better and still take the route that you're taking as far as the postseason goes.
I got Derek, and usually I say listeners, but Derek. He says, BJ, this is more of your expertise. What is the coaching stability in the MEAC? It seems they have more stability than us, and they contribute to the gap. He says, we've had awful coaching hires along with sticking with them being just average, not just a SWAC championship game.
I mean, it's been about the same. Morgan State has been a revolving door for coaches. Delaware State has been a revolving door for coaches. FAMU has been bad for, the better part of the last 15 years. South Carolina State has had Buddy Pugh there. North Carolina A&T, they have something going. But Sam Washington, he's just in year number 2 as the head man. Bethune-Cookman seems solid right now. Norfolk State just gave Latrell Scott an extension, which a lot of Norfolk State people aren't happy about that, because he has yet to get Norfolk State to the level that they thought that they would be. So it's been a revolving door in the MEAC as well. It just hadn't been this, this land of just great coaching hires and guys staying for 20 years. That hadn't been the case. The longest tenured coach in the MEAC is Buddy Pugh, but when you take that away from the MEAC, the second longest tenured coach at that level is actually in the SWAC with Dawson Owens.
Yeah, and Poor Dawson, Brandon and Carlos are always after him. Yeah, but I think people, coaches, they're humans. They're human beings as well. They say they block out the noise, but they hear it. They hear it, and it's not an easy profession, but I think it's something that you love to do. Now, this is from a guy that's not a coach that's saying this, but they have a love for it, being around young men or young women, whatever's the case or whatever the sport is, and you try. I look at it this way: you get a guy that comes in maybe as a freshman, a high schooler, and then when he leaves, he's a senior. He's a better player. He's a better person. He's a better student. He's better than when he came into the institution. If you transfer in, sometimes it doesn't work where you're at, but then you become part of a new family, and you love where you're at, and you contribute. So I just step back and look at all of this. I just think people are just really going nuts over it. I mean, it was brutal. It was brutal. A lot of times I just look at the comments. I don't really comment. I just read them. But, BJ, I guess that's the way it is after an emotional game like that in the conference. And before you know it, it'll be back to the grind again. Spring practice. Mm-hmm. And then it'll be SWAC football media day, predictions, summer workouts. You know, who's going to be eligible? Who's going to transfer in? Who's in the portal? It's a never-ending cycle.
I mean, it is. I mean, we talk about how fast the football season went by, but now the off seasons have started to go by fast because everything kind of comes together. You got to think we'll be having another signing day in a little less than 2 months, and right a couple of weeks after that you'll be getting ready for spring ball and how that goes into the summer and media day, like you said, and guys transferring out, transferring in, and it's literally become like I said, it comes quick, it goes quick. And it's literally almost become it's a year-round thing, not just for the players and the coaches, which has always been, but from a media standpoint as well.
Yeah, I got a chance to have a text message with a former coach in this league. And this former coach often draws a parallel to Coach Odoms. You knew I was going to say Coach Odoms. You knew it. And he says he thinks the moon of Coach Odoms. But now when I asked him about the staff, he was gone. He just asked me back. So it made me think, But with that being said, he also said he loved the Celebration Bowl. It was black college football. And this person also said that if it's God's plan, he was watching the game and wondering if he would ever be back on the sidelines again. And that person, I think, will, but sometimes it's all in the timing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I appreciate, having text messages with him. At least I know he's still among the living. And that's a good thing. Football season, a wrap. BJ, your early front runners. You don't have to give me 5. Give me the two early runners, and then who you're looking at maybe as a team that is looking to elevate.
So my front runners, I'm going to be looking at Alcorn State again in the SWAC, and I would not sleep on Alabama A&M with what they have coming back. I know they're losing a lot, but what they're losing is mostly on the defensive side that really wasn't all that good anyway. On the western side, I like Southern University and Grambling State. I like both of those two teams. A team to watch and look for would be Arkansas Pine Bluff. You saw what Cedric Thomas was able to do in year 2, getting them to a winning season for the first time since 2012. It'll be interesting to see if they can close the gap and get into title contention next season. Over in the MEAC, it is a 3-headed race. FAMU, North Carolina A&T, and South Carolina State. All 3 of those teams have a lot of talent coming back. We talk about how young North Carolina A&T is, only 10 seniors in that 2 deep. And Jermaine Martin has already announced that he's coming back. FAMU with a lot of talent coming back. They have to replace a quarterback. A lot of talent around him. South Carolina State still going to be solid. A lot of talent returning freshman quarterback. It's going to be a 3-headed race in the MEAC. And if there was a team that might sneak in there, it might be Norfolk State with Latrell Scott and the boys up there in Virginia. So I wouldn't sleep on them either.
You know they're expecting a lot after that contract extension.
Oh, yeah, they're expecting a lot. And don't forget about Bethune-Cookman, because I think every year in the offseason, people forget about Bethune-Cookman, and all they do is finish second in the MEAC. You wonder how many second-place finishes do the Wildcats have in them before they finally kick the door down.
Sounds familiar.
Very familiar.
See, when you think you have a unique problem, oh, you don't. There's others just like you. I say second place can be a sin sometimes. I really do. But then I also say the lack of money is the root of all evil. Blasphemy. BJ, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk real soon.
All right, thank you, Carlos. Thank you for having me.
All right, want to thank Brandon B.J. Jones for getting all choked up. Charles Edmonds, Dr. Brother Michael Prince, and everyone who listened in. Continued happy holidays, happy Kwanzaa. And this time next week, it'll be 2020. That's always a special time for those who make that crossover to 2020. You know what I mean? We appreciate it. Until next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another edition of the Coles Brown Show. And as always, peace and God bless.